Hi, I'm Mike Bono, and this is my Comedic Chapters. So why stand-up comedy? I've always liked making people laugh, and I've had a bunch of friends through college and everything like that that would tell me like, oh, you're so funny, you should be a comedian, and I just blew it off at first. And I had a buddy of mine after college, he was running these open mic nights, and he had built this open mic night up so big that he was actually able to start paying the comedians that were coming to an open mic, which is kind of unheard of for most open mics. And he had a comedian drop out, and the owner of the bar that he was doing it was so rude that he was like, well, if you don't fill the full slate, then I'm not paying you, blah, 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 the ins and outs of the business of comedy. So he asked me if he would do it. He told me to write my jokes for me and all this other stuff. And I told him, you know what, for you, I'll do it so that we can keep your show going. I really like coming and watching these. But if I'm doing this, I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to write my own jokes, and we can go that route. And if I'm not funny, I apologize for ruining the show, but I'll do it for you to help you out. He was a fraternity brother of mine, so I really wanted to help him out. And lo and behold, I show up to the venue, the bar, super early because I had crippling stage fright at first, and I couldn't even get on stage for anything, let alone by myself with a microphone and a big spotlight on me. And I go up and I do my set, and I killed the room. Like, there wasn't a dry eye. People were crying, laughing so hard because I was just talking about things that happened on and off throughout my day and my life and everything like that. And it was funny because my buddy was like, oh, okay, so here's the running order. Bono, we're going to have you go on first because, let's face it, it's your first time. You wrote your own jokes. You're probably going to bomb. So we want that, and then we'll come in, the guys that have been doing this for a while, and we'll absolutely save the show. I said, that's fine. It's your show. Put me on wherever. Well, I killed so much. All the other comedians after me bombed because I did so well. And the funniest thing they all said was, oh man, who put this running order together? And I kind of caught the comedy itch after that, and I've been doing it for 11 years now. So being in comedy as long as I have, over 11 years, you do a lot of crappy shows. And I don't mean like bad shows like you bombed on stage, which happens in comedy. You're going to bomb. It's not if, it's when you're going to bomb. But some of the places that you do early on in comedy, they're not the best shows. I remember a show I did. It was right when the pandemic was slowing down and things were opening up. I didn't have to do Zoom shows. I could actually physically go and do live comedy. Had a guy reach out to me to this festival at a campground. And at first I was like, oh, that could be pretty cool. You know, festival, they have multiple stages. They have, obviously it's set up well. They can have multiple forms of entertainment. Well, I showed up. My GPS told me that I was there, and I just looked at both sides of me, and I was in the middle of a cornfield, and you know, right in the middle of bumfuck, and you got a purty mouth in Ohio. And I finally got a hold of the promoter. He got me to the campground, but it was so bad. Like, it was like stoner fest because there was two people sitting in front of the stage actually wanting to enjoy the show. And there was just so many people walking around to the point where I had people coming up and leaning on the stage and like just wanting to have a conversation with me, to the point where, you know, you had to look at them and be like, you know, I'm working, right? Like, this is what I do for a living, and I'm actually getting paid to be here. Could you like not be on the stage? I don't want to be that guy and that entertainer that is telling fans to not be that close to me. And there was no security there either at all at this festival, so it was just whatever happens. I had people screaming from across the campground, you know, what they thought was funny and their jokes that they had. And and it was by far one of the worst shows. I got my little pay that I was getting for that, and I hightailed it out of there. And that's another thing is I didn't stay. I drove home that night. But you do stay at a lot of crappy places when you're in stand-up comedy. And I've stayed at places where I walked into the room and there's ceiling tiles that are on the floor. There was clearly water damage. Towels in the bathroom and that were all brown, and that to the point where, like, I don't want to be that person because I've worked in customer service. Like, no, you're changing me rooms. Like, I'm not sleeping here. I still have some standards in life. But, you know, those are some of the things you deal with early on in a comedy career, or even later on in a comedy career as I've started to. But there are those good shows that you have. I've had a lot of really good shows to where I've been, you know, put up in pretty nice hotels from the venues. There's theaters and that really take care of you, and those are what keep you going in comedy, because I've eaten some pretty bad meals being on the road early on in my career, and, you know, to the point where I was driving from West Virginia to Illinois to do a show, to turn around to drive back to be at my day job, because I was like 2 or 3 years in at this point in time into comedy. And I stopped at a little quickie mart just to get something to eat. And this was, okay, so I've been in 11 years, so this was 9 years ago. To this day, I still don't know what I ate. It was just something at a gas station, little quickie mart on that perpetual motion machine. I just kind of grabbed it. It was like $1.50 to get it and go. And yeah, to this day, I don't know what it is that I ate, but I ate it. And yeah, that was some of the worst experiences I've had. But those good shows that you have are what really keeps me going and grinding on this comedy career. So being a comedian, you deal with a lot of people on a daily basis, one of which is promoters. They're the ones that put on the shows and, you know, give you your paycheck essentially and everything like that. And there's good ones, and then there's the not so good ones. And, you know, being in comedy 11 years, I've worked with some not so good ones. One in particular, I won't say his name on here, but I did a show over 2 years ago. He talked it up. It's going to be a 30-minute live taped special for you, blah, 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 all this other stuff, hyped it up. We talked about my payment and everything like that for the show. And then the day of the show, he was like, well, you're only getting paid on pre-sale tickets. And honestly, no comedian is going to sell pre-sale tickets. People are going to show up to a comedy show and buy tickets there. But place was actually packed, and he, you know, was adamant about it and wouldn't pay me what we had agreed upon at the beginning of everything, because I have a flat fee and everything like that, plus the ticket revenue that he said we would get, and paid me $5 for a 30-minute special. And it never aired. I looked on Roku where he said it was going to be. I looked on all their Twitch, social medias, everything like that. When I did my show, everybody else that did theirs had this big banner with their headshots on it and everything like that. And it looked really good, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to see mine. But when I showed up to the venue, he didn't even have a poster for me with my headshot on it, which I sent him. He had multiple headshots to use for me. And he was just one of the worst. I won't say his name because I don't want to cause any hate or anything like that. I don't want to perpetuate the hate that is in comedy, which I don't understand that either. But yeah, and, you know, after talking with Stephen G, who's been on here before, you know, I now ask for deposit money, which is a very good thing for anybody getting into comedy. Ask for that deposit money, because if not, you're going to get paid $5 for a half-hour special. So how comedians come up with new material? I get asked this a lot as a comedian. People always are coming up to me like, how do you keep coming up with new material for all these shows that you do and keep it fresh? And for me and my personal writing style is I just live my life and then I report it back on stage. And I always have my joke notebook pretty much within arm's reach of me. that if I have an idea, I can write it down real quick for an idea or a premise for a joke. I'm a lot better, for me personally, in my style, I'm a lot better off the cuff and think of stuff off the top of my head. But that's how I just live life really for me, and that's how I come up with the jokes that I write and to keep coming up with new material. Now, with jokes that don't work, there's parts of those jokes that are going to work, and you got to find. That's why I film every show that I do, whether it's an open mic or a big show. I always film it myself so I can go back and watch it later to say, okay, well, this joke really didn't work here and here, but this part of the joke was funny, so let me look at this part of the joke and then build off of that. And you kind of pick and choose and get rid of the stuff that doesn't work. It's like a good recipe, you know. You work with the ingredients till you have it perfect, and we don't need this, and get rid of that. This was better, and it's like a good stew, is what I would say for me. And like I said, I just live my life, and I write jokes based off of that. So the biggest question that I get asked on, I guess, a daily basis is people ask me how I turn off my stage persona when I'm home. And for me is I don't have a stage persona. The lovable asshole that you see on stage is the same lovable asshole that is home with his wife and son and everything like that. So I don't have a stage persona. I am just myself on stage. And I think you can tell I don't want to say the better comedians, because there's a lot of good comedians, but the ones that aren't putting on an act, you can tell the ones that are and the ones that aren't. One thing that, really shines with me with that is crowd work. And I love talking to the crowd and engaging them into the show. And, one thing that crowd work can help new comics out with is bombing. I said it earlier, it's not when you bomb. No, if you're going to bomb, it's when you're going to bomb. See, I'm bombing this right now. But yeah, it's not if, it's when you're going to bomb. And one way to handle that is by getting the crowd engaged, because you're going to have hecklers at almost any show. You're probably going to do, at least in my experience, that's what I've had. And how you respond to that, I think, brings the crowd back on your team. One thing that it can help you with is bombing, because like I said earlier, it's not if you're going to bomb, it's when you're going to bomb. And it happens to every comedian, even these national headliners that you see, the Kevin Harts, the Chris DiStefano's, all those people, they bombed in their careers. And you find a way, if there's somebody that's talking during the show, they are annoying everybody else around them while you're trying to perform, even if you're bombing, they're annoying them. So if you can pick them out and start picking on them and cracking jokes on them, other people around are like, yeah, fuck this guy. This is, yeah, and then you bring the crowd back to you. So that's one way you can handle a bomb, and integrate crowd work into it too as well, because you don't have to just randomly start pointing at people in the audience and just start picking on them and having fun and talking with them and everything like that. But crowd work is another way to transition from one joke to another, because that's one thing a lot of people ask is, well, how do you know how to move from this joke about this to this joke about that? And for me, it's crowd work. And that is, I don't want to say it's my stage persona, because it's not, because it's the same person that I am in real life. Family and comedy. It is a rocky road at the beginning, because when you're first starting out in comedy, there's not a lot of pay. You're doing open mics, you're trying to get a name out there to get these bigger shows, these paid shows and everything like that. So it's a grind at first, and it's something that, trying to explain to somebody who's old school and has worked in a steel mill his entire life that, I'm getting paid in experience. I'm not getting paid in dollars or anything like that yet, but it will. So they're not that supportive. Now, my wife and my son are super supportive, and I probably wouldn't be able to do it without them, but they are so supportive. My son can't wait till he's a little bit more of age to start coming to more and more shows that he can see what dad does for a living and everything like that. But yeah, the family aspect, my parents they don't understand it. It's been 11 years and they have been to 0 shows. In 11 years, and I don't want to say it hurts because it motivates me because I get a lot of material out of it. I use them as material. One thing I like to say when I go up on stage, it's applause, and I wait for it to die down, and it's thank you for applauding for what my parents are embarrassed about, and that is how family affects comedy for me. So how do you find the funny in any situation? You kind of have to be wired for that, I guess, a little bit. But I found out real early on and often that, you can either let these hard times and these bad situations define you and keep you down, or you can find the funny in it and it can help you get through it. I firmly believe that laughter is the best medicine in the world. And you've got to find the funny in any situation that you're in, because if not, it'll eat at you. And I'll tell you a little quick story. My mom's real dad passed away about 2 years ago. And me and him really weren't close, but it's still a sad day that, you're losing a family member. And we get to the funeral home, and it's supposed to be a very sad, somber day. Well, insert my dad's dad, my grandfather on my dad's side. And he has a hearing aid that he doesn't like to turn up all the time, so he can barely hear as it is. So he's a loud Italian like I am as it is, but he's straight off the boat Italian, so he's louder than usual. And he thinks he's whispering, and he's not, because he can't hear how loud he's actually talking. So he leans into my wife probably 10 feet away from my mom's real dad's body that's laying there in the casket ready to be shown. And he leans in as if he's gonna whisper. And he says, "I don't know who's going to show up to this. He was kind of an asshole and nobody liked him." It's something that we still laugh about to this day. That is what we think about to this day. And it made, I don't want to say it made the funeral more enjoyable, but it made the funeral more enjoyable because my wife and I kept snickering and laughing about how loud he was actually talking. Because then my grandmother overheard it, his wife, and turns around and she goes, "Why don't you say it a little louder? I think you're going to wake the dead up there." And she was screaming it too as well from across the funeral parlor, and they just got into this typical married, they've been together 67 years fight. And it was hysterical, and we told everybody that came to the funeral that story, and everybody got a laugh out of it, and everybody thinks it's the funniest thing that they've heard in a long time. And we realized we could have been sad at that day, but we were all laughing and having a good time, and we found the funny in a very sad situation. So I think it's just the way that you got to be wired, is to find the funny in any situation. You can either find the funny in it, or you can go and pay for therapy. So everybody that's come up in comedy has somebody that they looked up to and really made them want to get into comedy. To me, growing up in the 90s, it was Jerry Seinfeld was kind of really big, and he was, the Seinfeld Show and everything like that. Kevin James with his sitcoms and everything like that he was on. I love Kevin James' stand-up. Even, they're not well known, but they're funny every time. But Bill Burr is really one of the ones that I really like a lot, because I feel like me and him are kind of the same person, only we're not, because I'm a long ranting comedian and I tell these long stories, and I was dubbed the angry white comic when I first started doing comedy. And it's stuck with me for 11 years. And I feel like, just the attitude that I have towards other people, and telling these stories about these stupid people on stage, and kind of like what he does on stage when he goes into his little ranting stories and everything like that. So I feel like, him and, like I said, Jerry Seinfeld is another one, and Kevin James has been a real big influence into me wanting to do comedy. Why am I so angry? And, I got dubbed the angry white ranting comedian when I first started doing comedy, and it's stuck for 11 years. And why I'm so angry is because I've worked in retail for the past 11 years and sales also while doing comedy and for the past 11 years. And you hear a lot of stupid questions in that career path and being in sales, and it's just something that you have to deal with. Also, I don't know what it is about me. Like, I don't know if it's just a gene that I have in me being Italian, because everybody in my family just has, and I don't want to say anger management issues, but we get upset easily at the littlest thing, and it's become comedy gold for me, really, is why, you could find it on my YouTube page, me on my ride home, my day in the life of a struggling comic videos that I have, and yelling at cars while I'm trying to film talking about my day because somebody cut me off on the interstate or something like that. And it's just, I don't know why. I think if common sense was more common, more people would have it. That's where I'm at. And I don't know what gene that is that I have in me, but it's to the point now where you hear a stupid question, and it's sales, I have to be professional. I'm not on stage. I don't have a microphone. So I have to suppress and push all this anger down in me while I'm with the customer. But when they leave, I'm just like, you motherfucker, and I just lose my shit by myself. And a quick little story about that, and it's funny because I'm pretty sure my wife will tell you this is the moment she fell in love with me, because we used to work together at AT&T, and it was a Sunday. We were working, and I don't know if you've ever heard somebody be sick on the phone, but I heard somebody be sick on the phone, and he called in, and he was looking for my manager, who doesn't work on Sundays, and it was a Sunday, and he just goes, "Dad there?" And I was like, no, he's not. Is there something I can help you with? He said, "I just really need to talk to Dad. I'll call tomorrow." And he hung up on me. And as I put the phone down, I was so mad, that he hung up on me, because that's just rude to hang up on somebody. I slammed the receiver of the phone down. I went, "Dude, blow your fucking nose. You just gave me Ebola via phone. Jesus Christ. Have you ever seen somebody or heard somebody with the worst sinus drainage I've ever seen in my life and heard in my life?" And the person I was working with was my now wife at the time, because that's where we met, and she started laughing, and to this day, which is almost, it's almost 12 years later, she still says to me every day, "Dude, blow your fucking nose." And it's become a joke, but that's why I'm so angry, is because there's stupid people all over the world, and I think it needs to hurt them, so I want to yell at them, and that is why I am so angry. And if you think about it, you could always visit the merch store, my Stupid Should Hurt merch store, and get some so that we can rally against the stupidity in this world. Goals with comedy is something, you have to have goals. And one of mine is, you do have to supplement some income when you're doing comedy. You got to do a lot of different things. And comedians don't really have days off, if you will. Me personally, I'm running a merch store. I'm running a podcast. I'm looking for sponsorships all the time for those, for my podcast and everything like that, to try to help to make ends meet, because as we've seen through the wonderful pandemic, the world can't shut down, and our jobs aren't really essential. So you have to find ways to supplement your income. I have my merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I started a coffee brand, Bono's Brew. I have a podcast. All this can help bring in income so that you can chase this dream of being a comic, because there's so many young people out there that feel like, oh, I'll just put a video on TikTok or YouTube and boom, I'm going to have a comedy special and I won't have to work a day in my life. That's not true. Like, I wish that was the case, because it made the past 11 years a little easier for me, but no, you have to find a way to supplement income. And I have a day job. I work a day job, and that's, salesman by day, comedian by night is what I like to call myself and say. But you have to have that to be able to perform, because like I said earlier, you're not going to be getting paid at the beginning doing these open mics and everything like that. So you have to have a way to supplement that income. But my end goal is to A, have a Netflix special, and B, be a full-time professional comedian to where I don't need to work a day job and I can take care of my family from comedy. Those are my end goals, and that's how you make ends meet. Advice I would give the younger comics out there, people thinking about getting into comedy, is A, get on stage as many times as you can and do these open mics. Find a local bar that's having an open mic, even if it's not for comedy, even if it's just an open mic where you're going to have bands and that. Get on stage as much as possible early on. It's only going to help later on down the road to get that stage time, to get that experience, to work out your jokes, to see what it's like to bomb and have that experience before you start to try to make a career out of it. Get on stage as many times as you possibly can. In the first year, I would say, get on stage as many times as you can. Like I used to do 3 or 4 open mics a week starting out, and I was driving all over Kingdom Come to do these and find them, and they're all out there. You just got to look for them and get on stage as many times as you can, because it's only going to help you down the road. And the second thing, and the most important thing I would say to do, is to get on social media. I know some people are like, well, I don't like TikTok and I don't like being on camera. Well, if you don't like being on camera, you're not going to make it as a comedian, because if you don't like it while you're sitting there by yourself trying to film something, you're not going to be able to get on stage with a microphone and a big spotlight on you in a room full of people. They're staring at you, waiting to see what you're going to do and if you're going to be funny or not. So get on social media and get on stage as many times as you possibly can. So get on stage as much as you can and get on social media. Comedy is a grind, and you're gonna have to be willing to do it. It's something that every comic that has ever made it has to do. They have to have that instinct to grind and to be able to put their nose to the ground and just climb their way to the top. That you're gonna have to be out on the road. You're gonna have to be away from family. You're gonna have to be, grinding is the only way I can describe it. You got to grind. You got to be able to hustle your way to the top, and you got to be able to handle that. And one thing that is tough, especially for newer comedians, hell, I've been in the game 11 years, and there's a lot of comedy clubs that, they're hard to get into. They have their set promoters. They have their set bookers. They're pretty stingy, but you have to be willing to send them your availability every month. Every month you have to send them your availability. I send it to every comedy club on the Eastern Seaboard, my availabilities, and I send them new video. I say tapes, it shows you how old I am. I say tapes because it used to be tapes, kids. It's not all digital on YouTube. Send them, clips of me doing new material, doing new stuff, new shows. I'm having shows here, I'm having shows there. You have to be willing to climb and claw your way, and it's a grind, and not everybody is able to do it. Not everybody has that in them, and that's okay. You don't have to be a grinder. Maybe comedy is not for you then, if you're not willing to, like I said, put your nose to the ground and just grind your way and climb your way to the top.